Did you know anything about Russell Brand? Had you heard any rumours about him?
I have nothing to do with Russell Brand. I've never met Russell Brand. My company has no interaction with Russell Brand, or rather, never did, and certainly doesn't now. So the answer is anything I knew or heard was exactly the same as what anybody else knew or heard, and that was mainly through seeing him on television programs or hearing him on radio programs, and being surprised at some of the things he was able to get away with, which was quite frankly shocking. And over the weekend, we've seen excerpts of some of his behavior patterns on TV. For example, I saw one broadcast, I think it was on the Big Brother show, where he took down his trousers and sat in a girl's lap. Yeah. I mean, the fact that that wasn't regarded at the time as beyond unacceptable, I find staggering, as I'm sure most people do. The only thing I would say, which I think is important in terms of looking at this from an overall perspective, absolutely investigations must be done, and absolutely, once again, lessons should be learned from the past. But I think there are two important issues to remember, well, no, three. The law of the land from your previous guest shouldn't be confused with the entertainment industry. The law of the land is the law of the land, and that applies to all industries. Now, if the law of the land is wrong, or the legal process is wrong, that's for Parliament, and that applies to all industries. So I don't think it's correct to relate that to Russell Brand. That's a much bigger factor across all industries. Secondly, this happened when the culture was very, very different. It simply does not happen in the entertainment industry now. That's not to say they're not rogues in the industry. They're rogues in every industry, whether it be the car business, the banking business, the pharmaceutical business. There'll be rogues everywhere in life. We all know that. We saw it in the medical services recently with that awful girl that's gone to prison. There are rogues everywhere, in spite of the fact there are also good people everywhere. The culture of television, with broadcasters, production companies, agents now, is such this kind of behavior would not be tolerated, and it would in virtually all circumstances be stopped immediately. Of course, there'll be exceptions to that, but, you know, one member of my family works in banking, and I hear stories in banking of what's unacceptable. So it's not an entertainment only problem.
Jonathan, this idea then of, I mean, I've worked at the BBC, I've worked for other broadcasters, and this idea was very valid, actually, which was that there are some stars who are just, they're too big, they're too economically important to a broadcaster. And I understand in 2023 things are very different. And you know, for example, Russell Brand he's not a TV star, he's a YouTube star. But this idea of indulging talent, do you think that has completely changed? And are you able to say that doesn't go on in 2023?
I think, again, anyone who's a star of their industry, whether it be the CEO of a corporation or a television star, a radio star, a motor racing driver, a footballer, the president of a pharmaceutical company, they do get indulged. That's life. Those at the top of the tree get indulged. But there's a difference between indulging someone because they're important to the organization and allowing them to step out of line. Yes, absolutely. Now stars will be treated with reverence, but so will the CEO of an anonymous organization. But as we saw with BP last week, the CEO was forced to resign because of inappropriate behavior. He might have been the big boss. That didn't allow him to have inappropriate behavior. And I think very much in this day and age, now, if there was inappropriate behavior from the star and they went to the head of the BBC or ITV or Channel 4 or Channel 5 or Sky or Netflix, that would be dealt with very quickly and it wouldn't be tolerated. So I do not believe stars would be indulged across the line now by the heads of the broadcasters.
What do you think happens to someone like Russell Brand now? Because as I said, he's not that kind of, you know, linear TV star. So it's a bit more nebulous, really, about what the effect, should these allegations be proven in a court of law, for example. It's less clear about what the impact on his career might be.
If there's criminality and the police investigate and decide there's criminality, then absolutely, like anyone, the due process of law will take place. It's irrelevant if he was a television star. It applies to anybody. But it's interesting how allegations get made very quickly. And if you remember with Hugh Edwards, there are allegations, the relationship of being with a 17-year-old, and the police knocked that back very quickly. And the police said, we're not investigating, it's not true. So one has to be very careful about believing suggestions made. I'm not defending or attacking Russell Brand from the point of view of criminality. I simply don't know. But it's very easy in a television program to insinuate from anonymous people who you can't see on screen, who aren't saying who they are, and are saying things that actually they protect the words they use. We simply don't know if there's criminality, and that's for the police. As to his career, he hasn't been a mainstream broadcaster for a while, so that's kind of not really the relevance here. What he does have, I guess, like that guy Tate, is this massive media following of people who pay to follow him, and that's a direct relationship between him and his fans. And if his fans want to pay to be part of Russell Brand world, that's a direct personal relationship. And unfortunately, in this day and age, some people buy controversy. Some people buy terrible people, like Andrew Tate, for example. People buy into him and he still makes money. If you look at the video Russell Brand put up, someone told me it's had 50 million views. If that's the case, he'll have made some good money from that video in itself. Um, as to his tours, of course, there'll be people who'll pay to go and see him because some people simply won't believe or accept it. Now, the question for Russell Brand is a lot of theatres will cancel his shows. I can't believe a lot of these theatres that book him, who are run by family people with children, are going to let the shows go ahead. So I suspect what you will see in even this week, I suspect some of his shows, if not all of his shows, will be cancelled because the venue will simply say, we're not prepared to have someone who behaves like this in our venues. And knowing if they do have them in their venues, the demonstrations from the local population will be considerable.